Welcome to our Living in Ambiguity flipped classroom. Today we'll be talking about allegories and analepsis. These are methods that can be utilized when comparing and contrasting different texts. So, what is an allegory? Well, there are two definitions. An allegory can be a story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning. It's typically a moral or political one. Or, it can be a story in which the characters and events are symbols that stand for ideas about human life, political, or historical situations. So, an example is in The Giver, the baby Gabriel can be seen as an allegory. Although he's a baby, he cannot be deemed directly as a character because his personality, his character was never really fully developed. However, there are many people who do think that he can be seen as a character, and many people wrongly interpret it as so. Therefore, he is utilized as someone Jonas can share his memories with, because he's unable to share them with his best friend Fiona because she's already been manipulated by the ideologies of that society, and he can share them with Gabriel because he has not been manipulated with the ideologies of that current society. So in other words, he's seen as pure and innocent, which is something very rare found in that society. Another example could be seen with this political cartoon. We see Donald Trump saying, "What a nasty woman," to the Statue of Liberty, and the Statue of Liberty represents democracy. And from the last debate, we can see that he made that remark towards Hillary, calling her a nasty woman. So political cartoons are a great example of allegories, and this one reflects one of Trump's comments, as I just said. The cartoon does show the bias the artist has towards Trump and the whole debate. Evidently, he or she's kind of naming Clinton as a democracy, and Trump is in a way shutting her down. When comparing and contrasting these two, it can be seen that both I'm not sure how to pronounce both Lois Lowry and Sheneman, which was the author of the political cartoon, utilized characters to represent a certain concept of their society. As I said before, Gabriel represents the innocence and purity that is not found in Jonas's society, while Hillary represents the democracy, and she's seen as like the true government of the people. So she's seen as someone who will represent the people rather than Trump, who just kind of shut her down. And when contrasting both of these, we can see that the way they express the allegory is different. In Laurie's case with the book, Gabriel is not an evident allegory, as the child can, as I said, can be commonly thought as a character, but again, he's never really fully developed as a character, so we can't really say that he is. So he's more of an allegory because, again, he does give the society like the purity and the innocence it does not have. But the way it's expressed, it's that you wouldn't really see it as that unless you were analyzing the text. And with the political cartoon, if you're given context, so if you had seen the debate or if you know of the debate, then you understand that the Statue of Liberty is referring to Hillary Clinton, and it's Trump, and it's Trump shutting down on democracy and saying, well, yeah, democracy is great, yeah, being for the people is great, but I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to just shut it down right now. So
now we will be looking at analepses, which is a literary technique that involves interruption of a chronological sequence of events by interjection of events or scenes of earlier occurrences. Another definition is a form of flashback in which earlier parts of a narrative are related to others that have already been narrated. An example of this is in The Handmaid's Tale when we're looking at Offred. And analepsis is also presented to show how Gilead has come to be and how it has changed over time. And this is so because we come to better understand who Offred is through analepses. This is due to being able to view her past and how it has impacted her, as like a whole, and also through learning who Offred is through her past in Gilead, and we also learn how Gilead has become a functioning society and how it has changed over time. One specific example of this in Handmaid's Tale is on page 28, where Ofred says, "It's been a long time since I've seen skirts so short on women. They seem undressed. It has taken so little time to change our minds about things like that. Then I think I used to dress like that. That was freedom, westernized, they used to call it." It shows through a flashback how Gilead has changed over time and how Ofred was in the past and how she is now in comparison. Another example of analepsis is Frank Capra's 1946 It's a Wonderful Life. In this film, analepsis isn't present throughout the entire film. It's only present in one particular scene, which is when George, the main character, attempts to commit suicide. And when this occurs, George's guardian angel comes down to show him all the good things that he has done for everybody else in the movie. And in the end, the guardian angel ends up saving him from dying. And this is a key point because it shows how the flashback was very important to who he is. Now, in comparing and contrasting both texts, how both texts are similar are in the way that they show analepsies, which is shown through the character's flashbacks. So all flashbacks are connected back to one specific character or a few characters. But in the context of the text I was looking at, in The Handmaid's Tale, all the flashbacks are from Ofred, and they show prior events to help understand who she is and how Gilead has come to be in comparison to how Gilead was in the past, or before Gilead came to be. And also in It's a Wonderful World, analepsis is present through flashbacks George has when he attempts to commit suicide, and this helps to show how he helped people in the past and build his character up and show who he was truly. Contrasting that, how both texts are different are the way that they're presented. In that I mean that both texts are made with different mediums. So obviously Handmaid's Tale is a book, which would change the interpretation of that text itself. And this is present in It's a Wonderful Life, where Frank Capra, the creator of that film, was asked if the analepsis was intentional, and he said that it wasn't a narrative device that he specifically chose. It was, quote unquote, to save a failing film. So that would go back to how it's contrasting, where it's the analepsis is obvious that it's intentional in The Handmaid's Tale in comparison to It's a Wonderful Life. And to continue, reasons to use analepses would be to show key events from the past that have impacted the story being told and the characters. It is also used to build up a character and give us insight on who they are and how their past has impacted who they are in the text as a whole. And allegories are used by authors to enhance the underlying message in their society, whether it is through a book or a political cartoon. Authors use these to communicate, whether it be evident or subtle.